Imagine the 2026 NBA Finals. Game 2, the New York Knicks versus the San Antonio Spurs. On the surface, it looked like just another finals game. Two historic franchises, a packed arena, millions of viewers watching around the world, and a championship hanging in the balance. By the end of the night, something happened that nobody expected. And the strangest part is that the final score only tells a small piece of the story. Because if you had asked analysts, former players, sportsbooks, or even most fans before tip-off, everyone would have predicted the exact same thing. The Spurs were supposed to win. Not maybe. Not probably. They were expected to win. The evidence was everywhere. The Knicks had already stolen Game 1 on the road, one of the hardest things to do in the NBA Finals. Into a hostile arena and taking home court advantage away from a championship contender is the kind of result that completely changes a series. But history suggested that Game 2 would be a different story. For decades, teams that lose Game 1 at home have responded with desperation in Game 2. Statistics consistently show that when a road team wins the opener, team often comes back stronger, more aggressive, and far more focused in the second game. The logic is simple. Lose Game 2, and suddenly you're heading on the road down 0-2. That's a nightmare scenario. A situation that can destroy championship dreams before they ever have a chance to develop. And the Spurs knew it. The coaches knew it. Players knew it. The fans knew it. Nobody inside that organization wanted to face the possibility of traveling to New York down 2 games. There was another reason people believed San Antonio would respond. A very important reason. They had already done it before. Earlier in the playoffs, the Spurs lost Game 1 against the Timberwolves. For a brief moment, critics wondered whether they had finally met a team capable of slowing them down. Then came Game 2, and the Spurs responded with absolute violence. They didn't just win. They destroyed Minnesota. By the time the final buzzer sounded, San Antonio had won by 38 points. 38. Kind of victory that doesn't simply tie a series. It sends a message. It tells the entire league that one loss means nothing. It tells opponents that mistakes will be punished. And it reminds everyone why you're a championship contender. So naturally, people expected the same thing to happen against New York. The narrative was already prepared. The headlines practically wrote themselves. Spurs respond. Series tied. Championship experience shows. Everything pointed toward San Antonio reclaiming control. Everything pointed toward a statement victory. Everything pointed toward the Knicks coming back down to earth. Basketball has a funny way of ignoring expectations, and that's exactly what happened. From the opening minutes, there was something different about this game. The Knicks weren't playing like a team satisfied with stealing Game 1. They weren't playing cautiously. They weren't playing scared. Instead, they looked like a team that believed they belonged on the same floor as San Antonio. Every run by the Spurs was answered. Every momentum swing was challenged. Every attempt to create separation seemed to disappear almost immediately. And as the game progressed, something unexpected began to happen. Pressure started changing sides. Before the game, all the pressure was on New York. Fourth quarter, it had shifted entirely onto San Antonio. Suddenly, the Spurs weren't chasing a victory. They were trying to avoid disaster, because every minute that passed without a comfortable lead brought them closer to a terrifying reality. The possibility of going down 0-2, at home, in the NBA Finals. And that's when the atmosphere inside the arena started to change. The confidence became tension. The excitement became anxiety. The certainty became doubt. Every possession felt heavier. Every shot carried more significance. Every mistake felt larger than it normally would. And in games like these, pressure doesn't affect everyone equally. Some players thrive under it. Others struggle with it. And sometimes, even the brightest stars in the world discover that championship pressure is unlike anything they've ever experienced. Brings us to Victor Wembanyama, the face of the franchise, the centerpiece of San Antonio's future. Player many believed would dominate the league for the next decade. By 2026, expectations surrounding Wembanyama had reached extraordinary levels. People weren't simply expecting greatness anymore. They expected perfection. Every highlight reinforced the myth. Every dominant performance increased the hype. Every victory strengthened the belief that he was destined to become the next legendary figure in NBA history. But greatness creates its own burden. The bigger the expectations become, the harder they are to carry. And nowhere is that burden heavier than in the NBA Finals. Because championships have a way of exposing even the smallest weaknesses. Necessarily physical weaknesses, mental ones, emotional ones. The kind that only appear when everything is on the line. As Game 2 entered its final moments, the pressure reached an entirely different level. Possession felt like it could determine the future of the series. The margin for error disappeared. One rebound, one pass, one rotation. Decision. That was all it would take. And then it happened. A moment so small that many viewers missed it completely. No dramatic collision. Spectacular turnover. No obvious disaster. Just a single sequence. A single decision. A single mistake. The kind of play that barely registers in real time. But when the game ended, that moment suddenly looked much bigger. Because the Knicks escaped. In 5-104. 1 point. One single point. And when a finals game is decided by 1 point, every possession becomes evidence. Every mistake becomes magnified. Every decision becomes part of the story. Fans began replaying the final minutes. Analysts started breaking down the film. Commentators revisited every critical sequence. And the deeper people looked, the clearer one reality became. The game hadn't been lost because of one quarter. It hadn't been lost because of one player. There was one moment that seemed to symbolize everything that went wrong. One moment connected directly to the overwhelming pressure surrounding San Antonio's biggest star. And suddenly, the conversation changed. People stopped talking about what the Knicks did right. They started talking about what the Spurs failed to do. They started talking about expectations, about pressure, about responsibility. About what happens when a franchise places the weight of a championship on the shoulders of a young superstar. Talent alone isn't enough in the finals. Skill alone isn't enough. Athleticism alone isn't enough. At some point, the game becomes psychological. At some point, it becomes emotional. At some point, it becomes a battle against fear itself. Fear of failure. Fear of regret. Fear of becoming the reason your team loses. And the more I analyzed those final moments, the more convinced I became that this story wasn't really about a basketball game. It was about what pressure does to people. It was about what happens when expectations become so enormous that even a tiny mistake feels impossible to escape. Because what happened that night wasn't just a loss. It wasn't just another finals game. It wasn't just another missed opportunity. It became a defining moment. A moment that changed the direction of the series. A moment that transformed confidence into doubt. A moment that forced everyone to look at Wembanyama differently. I knew there had to be something deeper behind that mistake. Something hidden beneath the box score. Something hidden beneath the headlines. And after putting all the pieces together, I finally understand the complete story behind Wembanyama's frustration. The desperation visible in those final seconds, and how one seemingly insignificant play ended up rewriting the destiny of the 2026 NBA Finals.